Okay, so this is the back of the first, assuming, let's say it's a 35-year-old client. Okay, so you finish the fact find, and now we do kind of the life journey planning. So, okay, so you're 35 today, and unfortunately, obviously, one day you will no longer be here. But in the meantime, you're going to be living life, and part of that is going to be, working until such time where you say, you know what, we're going to draw a line in the sand. We said that we've agreed for you, you'd like that to be 65. And you say, enough's enough, I'm going to hang up my boots and call it a day. When we get to that age or that point in life, we are going to need to have built up a large pot of assets of size X to produce us an income of Y. What do you see making up that pot of assets, Mr. Klein?
Pension.
Yep, pension is one. Cool.
ISAs.
ISAs, yeah, that can also be part of that, no problem.
Buy-to-let property.
Yeah, property can be in there. Buy-to-let is important, obviously, it can't be your main residence, it's never going to produce you any income. Anything else?
Direct shares.
Yeah. Alternative investments, cash as well will be in there, hopefully. The point here is that it doesn't really matter what makes up that pot. What does matter is that it's flexible, it's diverse, but obviously most importantly, it's big enough to give you what you want and need back end. So in the meantime, if we go back to sort of present day, obviously we're going to be earning, and hopefully earnings will look somewhat like that. Obviously it might not necessarily be as linear, but hopefully they will go up over the course of your career. And in the middle somewhere we will encounter kind of, an expense bubble. And that will be things like bigger house, bigger mortgage, family, kids, standard of living, simple fact of life, the more you earn, the more you spend, and of course the elephant in the room, which is tax. That leaves us with kind of 2 points in our lives where we can save for this long-term pot. Point A and point B. Which of those 2 points do you think is probably the best time to be hitting that long-term goal? Point A or point B? Point A, absolutely right. The reason why it's point A is compound growth. The eighth wonder of the world. Simple fact of life is that growth on growth on growth on growth is going to far outweigh any savvy investment decision that you make in your time over here. Super, super important. So how do we actually hit that goal, and how do we save for that? Well, we use different vehicles to do that. The main one and the most tax efficient long-term investment vehicle that we have available to us in the UK is this one, the pension. I'll come on and talk to that in a bit about how it works and why it's really, really useful. But we need to have some focus there on that long term. So having established that we have a long-term pot that we need to hit, and I'll come on to in a moment as to sort of how we hit that specifically, we also kind of need to track back a bit and realise, well, it's not all about the long term. Whilst that's really, really important, we've got this guy over here, which is a challenge, and we need to try and deal with that challenge. So as a result, we need to kind of build up a smaller, medium-term pot to kind of hit those challenges head on. The best way of us hitting this medium-term pot is use of something called your ISA. And above and beyond your ISA, we of course have things like general investment accounts, bonds, onshore, offshore, EISs, VCTs, etc. As appropriate for the client, we will obviously talk about those in detail and go around the tax efficiencies of those wrappers. So that's our medium-term pot, hitting those medium-term goals entirely on you and your ability to produce this income over the next 30 years to get you to the point where you want to be. So we need to look at you as an income-producing asset, and we need to establish that we need this kind of shorter-term pot here in order to kind of build that buffer to protect this entire plan. So we talk about a protection portfolio. Within that, we have things like your will. Okay. You told me you haven't made a will. Obviously we've got that in-house estate planning team, which I'm happy to refer you to, so you can talk to one of those guys about sorting that out. Next within your protection portfolio is your emergency fund. We've spoken about your cash in the bank. You've got 20 grand in the bank. It's really dependent on the individual as to how much you feel is a comfortable emergency fund. There's no real set level there, it's just whatever allows you to sleep at night without worrying too much. There are typical guidelines out there, but generally speaking we just say it's client dependent. for you, Mr. Client, you know, we're happy with your emergency fund. You say you've got 20 grand, and that's okay. That's enough, you know, if the boiler bubbles. Okay, so pen's not great, is it? Can you see that all right? Is it really light?
It is.
Okay, so this box here represents a pension, right? And a pension is probably the most tax efficient long-term vehicle that we have available to us in the UK. Right? So how they work is you put money in to that pension, and that money gets grossed up with tax relief. Okay, you are obviously a higher rate taxpayer, Mr. Client. So if you were to put £100 from your bank account each month into a personal pension, do you know how much gets invested? No? Okay, so the answer is £125 gets invested immediately. Okay, so you get a 25% return on your net money day one. Absolutely fantastic. That's just the start, however. You are a higher rate taxpayer, and this is what we call basic rate tax relief. So as a higher rate taxpayer, obviously you've already received 25 quid, but you are entitled to another 25 quid, which you claim back at the end of each tax year, which means it's cost you £75 to have £125 invested in your pension. Super, super tax efficient, and a great return on your net money without any investment risk whatsoever so far. Okay? Once it's in the pension, it then gets invested. Okay? Investments do that. They go up and down, but generally up over a long period of time. All of that growth on your investment is completely free of any tax. Okay? But probably with the one downside that you could view as a downside to a pension is that your money is locked up until you're age 55 at least. I like to see that as a good thing because it promotes discipline, and it means there's actually going to be a pot for you available when you get to retirement. You haven't had the opportunity to squander it. When you get to that age, it can be later if you wish, but that's the earliest, you can take out 25% of your entire pot as a tax-free lump sum. Okay? And what a lot of clients use that for is to say pay off a remaining mortgage debt, for example. But you can do whatever you want. The rest of the pot, the remaining 75% of the money, you use to produce an income somehow. Now, how you produce this income has significantly shifted over the past few years. What used to be the case was that we only had one choice, or one option, and that was called an annuity. Okay, do you know what an annuity is? No? Okay. So how an annuity works is, let's say we've got £1 million in our pension. We take 250 out, tax-free, and we've got 750 left over in the pot, and we're retiring. We take that £750,000 and we give it away to an insurance company. That insurance company takes ownership of that money. You no longer have any rights or access to it ever again. In return, that insurance company promises to pay you a guaranteed level of income for the rest of your life, regardless of how long you live for. So basically, it's a bet. It's a bet as to how long you're going to live. If you die the next day, insurance company wins, they keep all your money. If you live until 150, you win because they paid you out a lot more of income than they would have deemed that would have been that they would have expected to, based on how long they think you're going to live. Quite restrictive, no flexibility, no choice. But the good thing about it is obviously it's certain, so you will always get that income no matter what. Okay, that was our only choice up until about 2015. In 2015, the government introduced changes. And it's all good news here. There's absolutely no bad news whatsoever, because that annuity is still there if we want it. They've just given us another choice on top. That choice is called Flexi Access Drawdown. Have you heard of it? Do you know how it works? No? Okay. So how drawdown works is all other facets of a pension remain exactly the same. So you put your money in, you get your tax relief, you get your tax-free growth, it's still locked up until 55, and you still get your tax-free lump sum. How it differs is this bit here, this income provision. So, rather than in our example of having 750 left over, rather than giving that away to an insurance company, you retain it and it stays in your pension. It stays invested and albeit it'll be quite a conservative investment strategy at that point, you'll probably just be looking to kind of protect the capital and grow it in line with inflation, rather than shoot the lights out with volatility. And then the clue's in the name. You just draw down from it. So you just take chunks off, as appropriate for your lifestyle needs. It's such a fantastic introduction to the industry because it gives us so much flexibility, it gives us so much choice, and it's also tax efficient. The reason for that is annuity payments are either like that, or they're like that, so they're level, or they're increasing with inflation. What we know is, I think you probably agree, is that retirement does not look like a straight line. You may want, in the earlier years, to have more income, because you're younger, fitter, healthier, more able to go on holidays and enjoy yourself. You get a bit older, you slow down, you become frail, you just sit in front of the sofa, sit in front of the TV all day and just watch that. Don't spend any money. Then you get even older, you have care needs, your income needs to go up. Whatever that is, that line might look completely different for each individual. But what we can be almost certain of is your retirement will not be that. Flexi Access Drawdown gives us the ability to map that out in a way that actually fits our lifestyle. So not only does it give us that choice and flexibility, it allows us to be more tax efficient.